All right, let's talk about iftar during Ramadan. This one meal, it can either completely wreck your fitness goals, or if you play it smart, it can become your single most powerful tool for making progress. So, how do we turn iftar from a potential problem into a strategic weapon? Let's get into it.
Just picture it. You know the feeling, right? The sun's finally down. You've gone something like 15 hours with zero food, zero water. You're dehydrated, you're tired, you are hungry. And right in front of you is a table just loaded with food. The cravings are hitting you like a ton of bricks. Seriously, what you decide to do in the next 30 minutes, that's going to make or break your entire evening.
And what's the usual result when we just give in and go for it? You know it. Massive bloating, you feel totally wiped out, completely lethargic, forget about training, no way. Then comes that huge insulin crash, your digestion is a total disaster. It's basically a perfect recipe for a miserable evening and a bad night's sleep. But here's the thing, it really doesn't have to be like that. So what if we just flip the script on this? What if iftar, instead of being this big obstacle, could actually be our secret weapon? Seriously, it all comes down to understanding the really unique state your body is in right after a long fast. If we get that, we can totally turn this meal to our advantage. Let me show you how. Okay, to make this work, we first have to understand what's actually happening inside our bodies the exact moment we break that fast. The science behind this is pretty incredible, and honestly, it's the absolute key to unlocking the full power of your iftar. So, after about 15 hours of fasting, something amazing happens. Your body's sensitivity to insulin just goes through the roof. I'm talking 2, maybe even 3 times higher than it normally is. What does that mean? Well, think of your muscle cells like a super dry sponge. They are just primed and ready to soak up every single nutrient you give them. Whatever you eat in that first hour is going to get pulled into your cells with insane efficiency. But this whole metabolic sponge thing, it's a real double-edged sword. If you handle it right, it's incredible. Carbs go straight to refilling your muscle fuel tanks, your glycogen, not to fat stores. Protein gets shuttled directly to muscle repair. But if you get it wrong, oh man, you're looking at total digestive chaos, inflammation, and a huge energy crash. So yeah, the kind of food you choose is literally everything. So the big question is, how do we manage this super critical window? We call it the golden hour. It's those first 60 minutes after you break your fast. And trust me, these 60 minutes will define everything: your energy for the evening, your workout, and how well you recover. The strategy here is actually really simple, but you have to be deliberate. Step 1, hydrate and signal. All you're going to do is have 3 dates and about 500 milliliters of water, maybe with some electrolytes. The dates give you that quick but controlled carb source. Then comes the most important part, and I mean it, this is non-negotiable. You pause. You just stop. Wait 10 to 15 minutes, let your body wake up, then you can move on to a light, easy-to-digest meal. Think a simple soup or a protein shake. Let's walk through what that first hour looks like. Say you break your fast at 6:30. You have your dates and water. Then from about 6:35 to 6:45, that's your critical pause. You're just letting your body adjust. Around 6:45, you have that light meal to gently get your digestion going. By 7:15, you're in a completely different state. You're hydrated, your system is online, and now you're actually ready for a bigger meal or your pre-workout fuel. Okay, so once you've got that golden hour locked down, how does it fit into the rest of your evening? Well, this is where it gets personal, because the rest of your iftar strategy really needs to be built around your training schedule. All right, let's look at plan A, which is what I'd recommend for most people. Training around 8 p.m. You do your initial break at 6:30. Then, around 7:15, you have a proper pre-workout meal to fuel your performance. After your workout, say around 9:15, you immediately get a post-workout shake-in for rapid recovery. And then a little later, you sit down for a real solid dinner to focus on muscle repair and topping off those glycogen stores. See how every meal has a very specific purpose? But what if you're one of those people who trains before iftar, say around 5 p.m.? That's a totally different ballgame. You're training fasted, so you'll probably need to dial back the volume a bit. In this case, your iftar is your post-workout meal. The second you break your fast, it's all about recovery. So you start with the dates and water for hydration, but then almost immediately you get in a fast-acting protein shake, like whey with a banana, to kickstart that recovery process. Then you can have your main meal a little bit later to really refuel. And what about rest days? Do the rules change? Not really. The principles are exactly the same. You still start with that controlled iftar break at 6:30 to manage that metabolic sponge effect. But then you can space things out a bit more. Maybe you have your main dinner around 8:30, making sure it's balanced. And then, before bed, say around 11, you could have a small snack with some slow-release protein and healthy fats to fuel recovery while you sleep. So now you've got the strategy, but let's be real. Knowing the plan and actually doing it are two different things, right? Especially when the cravings are intense and you've got family gatherings and social pressure. So let's talk about the most common traps people fall into and, more importantly, how to sidestep them. These right here are the 5 biggest offenders, the things that will absolutely torpedo your progress. First, the 10-minute binge right after the adhan. Next, the pastry trap. We all know that one. Then there are the sugary drinks and sodas. Number 4 is going overboard on fried and fatty foods. And last but not least, just completely forgetting about vegetables. Recognizing these is half the battle. Let's just take a closer look at that pastry trap for a second. That one single piece of, say, an Oriental pastry, we're talking 400 to 600 calories. And what's in those calories? Pretty much just sugar and fat. It has almost zero nutritional value for your goals. Have 2 of those, and congratulations, you've just eaten the calorie equivalent of a full dinner. So how do you actually avoid falling into these traps? The answer is so simple, but so powerful. You just have to slow down. Your iftar is not a 20-minute all-you-can-eat sprint. Think of it as a 2-hour strategic refueling process. That one mindset shift, especially when you combine it with that non-negotiable pause we talked about, it changes everything. And here's a perfect real-world example of how a tiny change makes a huge difference. Let's take a brick, a popular savory pastry. If you fry it, you're looking at around 450 calories and 25 grams of fat. But if you just bake it instead, the calories drop to under 300 and you cut the fat in half. See? The cooking method matters a lot. Okay, here's a super practical rule for when you're at a family gathering or a big buffet. It's simple. Fill 60% of your plate with 2 things, lean protein and vegetables, before you even let your eyes wander to the other stuff. This is a game changer. You guarantee you get the good stuff in first, and you'll naturally have less room for the things that don't serve your goals. All right, let's wrap this all up with your final 7-point iftar checklist. This is your game plan. Number 1, slow the whole process down. Dates, water, and that critical pause. 2, exploit that insulin sensitivity in the first hour. 3, adapt your plan to your training schedule. 4, always prioritize protein and vegetables. 5, hydrate, 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 but do it progressively over the evening. 6, manage social meals with that 60% rule. And 7, know the classic traps, sugar, fat, and binging, and actively avoid them. Look, getting your iftar nutrition right is the absolute foundation of your fitness journey during Ramadan. It's the cornerstone. But it's really only half the battle. So now that you've got your nutrition strategy completely dialed in, the next big question is, how are you going to adapt your training to match it? Answering that question, that is what will truly unlock your potential this Ramadan.